the Diocese of Worcester, Massachusetts. The story of the faith in this region began with a holy and tireless missionary priest, was sustained and nurtured by educators from the Society of Jesus, and carries on today under the leadership of its current apostle, Bishop Robert J. McManus.
I think the whole thing about a cathedral is that, and centered around the chair from which the bishop teaches, rules, and sanctifies, it's a sign of unity, and it's a sign of being at home. This is where we belong.
This is the story of the bishops of America, the shepherds of the past and the shepherds of today, who through their callings and ministry carry the church into the future. It's also the story of their parish, their church, the cathedral. This is The Chair, an exploration of what it means to be an apostle in America. "40 miles west of Boston in central Massachusetts lies the heart of the Commonwealth, Worcester, Massachusetts, the sea city of the Diocese of Worcester."
When we think about Massachusetts and religion, we often equate it with the landing of the Pilgrims at Plymouth Rock, and then later on the Puritans coming to the Boston area. Catholicism doesn't play a very big role at all in the early formation of the Massachusetts colony. In fact, Catholics are looked at with a great deal of suspicion and mistrust.
The Massachusetts Charter of 1691 did not extend religious liberty to Catholics, and the colonial legislature passed a series of anti-priest laws during the colonial era. And it wasn't until after the Revolution that Massachusetts Catholics would have their first resident priest.
The first parish in what would become the Diocese of Worcester, St. John's, was established back in 1834 by a priest named Father Fitton. He was one of the early missionary priests active in Massachusetts. Father Fitton traveled extensively throughout the region, establishing parishes and missions, traveling as far west as the New York border and south into Connecticut and Rhode Island.
As the first parish in Worcester, St. John's was established to serve the growing Irish population that had come to the city to work on building the canals and later the railroads.
It's actually a very interesting community. We have the Irish laborers who were working on the canal. There are a few African Americans that were also present. Because of Father Fenton's reputation as a very gregarious and open man and a wonderful preacher, every now and then you'd see some renegade Protestants walking in the church and attending services. You had a Native American community who would often stop along the way as they were moving back to Maine for the summer because Father Fenton had befriended them in his missionary work. So in a sense, the parish that he created in Worcester was an extraordinary mix of the different people that the Catholic Church welcomes.
Numerous religious orders have helped the flourishing of the diocese. The Jesuits have had perhaps the longest presence in the diocese, establishing the College of the Holy Cross in 1843, making it the oldest Catholic institution of higher education in all of New England.
The bishop of the Diocese of Boston, Benedict Joseph Fenwick, had been trying to establish a college for Catholic men in the diocese for some time without success. Father Fitton had purchased the land in Worcester to build an academy of his own, but his priestly and missionary work took priority over this educational enterprise. So in 1842, he deeded the land to the bishop, Bishop Fenwick. Bishop Fenwick, who himself was a Jesuit, gave the land to the Jesuits, who established the College of the Holy Cross, naming it after the Cathedral of the Boston Diocese. The arrival of manufacturing jobs greatly grew Worcester's population from the mid-19th century into the 20th century. This attracted many Catholic immigrants who came into the region looking for better work, better opportunities for their families. By 1870, the Vatican had created a new diocese in Massachusetts, the Diocese of Springfield, with Worcester under its jurisdiction.
Worcester County had been the Catholic stronghold of the Diocese of Springfield, with some 97 parishes served by 375 priests and 24 religious orders of both men and women. The Diocese of Worcester was established in 1950, carved from the Diocese of Springfield, and it comprises only one county, Worcester County, the largest in the state of Massachusetts. The small size of the diocese, though, reflects the dense, tight-knit nature of the Catholic presence in the region. At the time the diocese was established, it had 250,000 Catholics, half the county's population.
The first bishop of the Diocese of Worcester was John Wright, who was previously an auxiliary for the Archdiocese of Boston and would later on become the Bishop of Pittsburgh and then prefect for the Congregation of the Clergy in Rome. So he is a very important figure in the history of the American Catholic Church. Bishop Wright inherited a diocese that was marked by rich ethnic diversity and a dense network of schools, parishes, and other Catholic institutions.
And during his time, he established some 29 new parishes in the diocese, going against a trend towards larger, more centralized parishes. He maintained a commitment to ethnic parishes and schools at a time when many other dioceses were moving against a system of ethnic separatism.
Breaking off the Diocese of Worcester from Springfield created this wonderful intimacy of one diocese in one county. You can drive any place in the Diocese of Worcester within 1 hour. So the Diocese of Worcester has always had a wonderful kind of working class, familial character to it, in its presbyterate, in its parishes, and also in its cathedral.
Construction on the Cathedral of Saint Paul was completed in 1889. This is a Gothic revival building, and it is really impressive. When you see it from the street, you know this is an important building. It rises high into the skyline.
It's up on one of the highest hills in downtown Worcester. It looks towards City Hall, and it sits here presiding over the whole city of Worcester in a wonderful way. It was built by Father John Power, who was an extraordinary character. They often say in his biographies, it was a cathedral that was waiting for a diocese to be established. It took about 8 years to lay the foundation for the cathedral. Part of that was that Father Power would raise a little money, build a little bit, raise a little money, build a little bit.
One of the notable features is an elegant staircase that enters the portico. And it's really interesting to think of this as the threshold, coming from the street level and entering the building that partakes in the heavenly liturgy. Certainly, there's a level at which a church is sacred because wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in his name, he is present. Beyond that, though, it houses the Eucharist. So the whole building sort of functions as a tabernacle. And then beyond that is this place where the sacrifice of the Holy Mass is celebrated. This is this place that participates in the heavenly liturgy and gives us a foretaste of heaven. So the steps up into the building from street level into this place that really exists in this interstitial space between earth and heaven. So that's a really symbolic, ascend the stairs and cross the threshold into the cathedral.
The most prized possession would be the crucifix over the altar. We have no certainty as to what it dates to, but we're guessing it's probably late 16th, early 17th century. It's a beautiful Bavarian crucifix. It has a depth and a character to it. It has a finish that makes it look almost human. It used to sit in the vestibule of the church until the most recent renovation, when it was placed over the altar. So now it's a very central focus of everything.
The interior of the cathedral architecturally is very much related to the exterior. It's in Gothic revival style, and it has this sort of wonderful ornament that relates to those principles of height and light, which are characteristic of the Gothic style. And there really is that nature experience of being in the forest and looking up through ribs, which represent branches, and to the sky. But this building has changed over time, and so we see that here. This is a much lighter, it's almost white color of the interior, where historically it would have been intricately patterned and decorated and really articulating that ornament.
When the church became a cathedral in 1950, Cardinal Wright recreated the entire interior. It has now been redone twice since him. Wright's idea of establishing windows that could speak and tell the story of the faith, he executed that by finding the most famous graphic artist of the day. She generally did illustrations to agricultural books at the time, but her name was Claire Leighton, originally from Great Britain, then Baltimore, and then Maine. She'd never done a window in her life, but she created these extraordinarily vivid presentations of who the patron of this place, St. Paul, really is. And when you look at these windows, they're the kinds of windows in which you can read the entire life of St. Paul in these vivid, descriptive, emotional, graphic presentations.
The stained glass is a notable feature, letting in a tremendous amount of light. So the experience, even though the exterior is solid and permanent, sort of eternal feeling, the interior is very light and airy. And that's achieved in large part by the stained glass windows, particularly in the transept. So this is a cruciform church, so that means it's in the shape of the cross. So the body of Christ being the nave where all the people gather, and the arms, transept lets in a tremendous amount of light through these nearly floor-to-ceiling windows. And we think about the patron of the church, St. Paul, being blinded by the light of Christ, by the truth. And so it's very fitting that St. Paul's Cathedral be so full of light.
You can see a very old statue that goes back to the late 19th century of St. Paul on the front. He's been there since just after the Civil War, when this church was built, looking out over the city of Worcester and interceding for the people of this town. Anytime that we speak to people, we always say, welcome home to your cathedral church. Benvenido a su catedral. This is the heart of the Diocese of Worcester, where everybody belongs. This is the church where everybody becomes one in Christ.
I think the whole thing about a cathedral is that, and centered around the chair from which the bishop teaches, rules, and sanctifies, it's a sign of unity, and it's a sign of being at home. This is where we belong. I'm so glad to see so many come to the mother church of the diocese. I think it gives people a sense of the unity of the diocese, where anybody can come here and to know that this is the heart of the diocese and that they belong here. And it's not that just we belong here in the Cathedral of Worcester, but that chair in my coat of arms on that chair reminds us that we are a part of a larger unity, the Catholic Church.
The chair in St. Paul Cathedral represents Bishop Robert J. McManus's authority as the Apostle of Worcester.
I grew up in Providence, Rhode Island. My father worked his whole life in the post office system, worked 2 jobs until the day he retired. My mother stayed home, and they were very devout Catholics. So it was a very loving home. I have 3 brothers and 1 sister. We were raised in a very close, traditional Catholic family. It was a very middle-class, blue-collar type of neighborhood, street after street of 3-decker houses, something like Worcester. We were 4 streets down from the school and the convent and the rectory and the church. So it was a very Catholic ethos. My home parish was a place called Blessed Sacrament. We had a big Catholic school, Blessed Sacrament School. We were taught by a group of sisters called the Faithful Companions of Jesus, which was a French foundation, beginning of the 19th century. All the nuns we had were Irish born. So I said, well, you knew more about Irish history than you know about American history. I went to the high school seminary when I was 14 years old. And right before we were going to take the test to go to high school, this mother, Ethna, she said, I want to see the boys. The girls go out to recess, the boys have to stay here. And so she gave a panegyric on the priest and her one, and she said, you will take the test. And so for my 8th grade class, there were probably 50 boys, 13 went in the high school seminary, and of the 13 of us, 4 of us were ordained priests. The example of the nuns, example of the priests, they were so much a part of our lives, and we're great examples. So it was the idea of a vocation that really started very early in my life. I went to the 4 years of high school, Our Lady of Providence Seminary property, 80 acres on Narragansett Bay, spectacular. And when I went there in '65, there probably between 4 years of high school, 2 years of college, and 2 years of philosophy, there probably were over 300 seminarians studying for Providence. So I did 4 years of high school, then 2 years of college, and then I went to Catholic University on this Basel scholarship to study philosophy. And then I went, after philosophy, I went to the Toronto School of Theology to do my MDiv, which was a great experience.
Bishop McManus was ordained to the priesthood in May 1978 in the Diocese of Providence, where he served as a parish priest, hospital chaplain, and college chaplain. After completing doctoral studies in Rome, he was named the Vicar of Education before becoming the rector of Our Lady of Providence Seminary in 1998, and then in 1999, an auxiliary bishop of Providence. In May of 2004, Bishop McManus was named the 5th Bishop of Worcester.
I often said that the happiest 6 years of my life as a priest and bishop were the years I was rector of the seminary. It really was a wonderful, because I took over in seminary in 1998. I was absolutely edified by the courage, the faith of these young seminarians. I was first auxiliary bishop 5 years. So I was auxiliary bishop, rector of the seminary. I was also vicar for education. And then when I was assigned here, I had been up at a meeting in northern Rhode Island, and the flasher was going. So I hit it, and it was a voice of a young woman who's been a secretary at the nunciature, saying, would I please call the nuncio? So he's on the phone, and he said, the Holy Father loves you very much. I said, oh, thank you, I love the Holy Father very much myself. He said, he has it in mind to name you the Bishop of Worcester. Do you accept? So I said, sure. And I was installed here in Worcester on May 14th of 2004.
In the years since becoming bishop, Bishop McManus has worked hard to lead his flock as a true shepherd and apostle, especially to the new immigrant communities present in the diocese.
My first ordination, when you ordained one of the wonderful young men from Uganda, and it was family from Uganda. During the ceremony, when people are applauding, they're ululating, and all types of beautiful outfits. And I was standing at the cathedral, and I said to myself, Bishop John Wright in 1950, when he took possession of this diocese, could never in his wildest dreams. But these people have the faith. The Latinos, they love processions. The Brazilians love the Africans, always inviting me to their celebrations. They have the faith, and that has really sort of elicited in me a type of pastoral style that I really, because I can tend to be sort of a formal person. They're just very warm, and they are so respectful of the authority of the bishop, and they want the bishop very much to be a part of their community. The bishop roles are to teach, to govern, and to sanctify. And being a teacher, I've always enjoyed teaching and giving lectures and delivering papers. And I think the beauty about philosophy is that it gives us a way of talking about the truth of revelation in non-biblical secular terms. The one, the true, the beautiful. The importance of unity, oneness. People can resonate on that level, and then you can bring them, you can lead them, sort of a almost Socratic method, bring them into a realization that what we learn through the gift of reason and intelligence that is complemented and elevated by by the truth of revelation. What John Paul II talked about, faith and reason as two wings that lead us up to the attainment of truth. Everything we do as a Catholic community, whether you're a priest or manifestation life, it has to be Christocentric. When Benedict talked about the Christian life as being an encounter with the person, I would say it's very easy for a Catholic to walk away from a system of truths. But it's very difficult for a Catholic to walk away from Jesus Christ if you've had an encounter. If our people do not have on some level that they've fallen in love with Christ, if they don't have that, then they can drift.